Welcome everybody to our event tonight at the Library Museum. We have a couple of great speakers tonight. Two of our very own students from our executive committee are going to be telling us about some of their jobs and internships tonight. We also have a museum director that works at the Mathew Museum, so we're really excited to hear from these people tonight. Before we get started, I wanted to put it over to Amy, who is going to tell you about a couple of our, we all like dogs, we're good, who's going to tell you about some of our openings we have on our executive committee coming up. So Amy, if you want to talk a little about those.
Sure. Welcome, everybody. My name is Amy Nijkamp, and I am the president of the SLA Student Chapter. We do have 6 openings right now. We're looking for, among other things, a programming director, and Jessica Schelleman can tell you all about that, an assistant programming director, an assistant social media director, an assistant communications director, another assistant membership director to help out Jess Wynnum, and an assistant blog editor. So those are all posted on our website, and I will get you the link in the chat in just a moment. But if you are interested, we are taking resumes and applications now, and I'll also post the information where you can apply. So we hope you'll consider that. We love having new people join us, and we take good care of you. So thanks. I'm going to turn it over to Jess and turn off my video.
Okay. One more thing before we get started tonight, I wanted to let you know we will be live tweeting tonight. Mathew, our social media director, will be doing that. It looks like Jennifer already put our hashtag into the chat box. If you guys want to follow along with that. And then Mathew, could you also put our the Twitter, or either Jennifer or Mathew, whoever has easy access to that, put our the website for our Twitter account in there as well. Okay, to get started, I know there are, as I said, we have 2 students from our executive committee that are going to be joining us tonight. The first one up is going to be Karen Pfeffer, who is our current vice president of our student chapter here. So, Karen, if you want to go ahead and take off with that.
Sure can. So just to briefly introduce myself, I am Karen Pfeffer. I am the current co-vice president of the SLA Student Chapter, and I work at Academy of Art University as a library assistant, and I'm currently pursuing an internship at San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, doing original cataloging and research within their library and archive. And I think you guys might hear my in-laws' phone, so apologies for that. I would say that I did not start out wanting to be a librarian. I started as an artist. I come from a background doing dance and music and visual arts. I ended up in California from Minnesota doing dance. I had gone to an art high school and had been recruited by a dance professional who wanted me to come dance at Mills College. So I came out here and did that. But then, yes, I can turn my video on. But then things just went awry at Mills College. It was a very heavily based graduate program, and I really did not like that. It was a lot of 30-year-olds who had a lot of life experiences. I was only 18 at the time, so I ended up going into the visual arts department and ended up majoring in studio art. I then took a hiatus from my art practice and did retail merchandising management for 10 years. And then from there, realized I really wanted to get back into the arts and started stalking different programs and ways that I could do arts education and do arts professionally beyond being an artist. I was really disenfranchised with my art experience because I felt like people don't really tell you how to be a professional within the arts, and it was really frustrating, and I wanted to help others to have a voice, and I really wanted to help people learn more about art, but also be professionals, be artists, learn more about how they can express themselves in some way. So thought really hard about that, ended up going to Africa really briefly, and learned a lot about different ways that information can affect people, and that eventually drove me back to librarianship, which people thought was insane at the time. They're like, why would you want to do that? And then I explained it, and I, as I'm explaining to you, it's a journey. It's all about like teaching people and giving people their voices. So came to San Jose State University from there, and knew that I wanted to work at SF MoMA. So I thought about different ways that I could do it, and I ended up stalking the internship that I am in right now for probably like a year, and learned all the ways that I could get into the internship. It was not easy, I will tell you that, to get there. It's a very hard, it's a hard internship in a way that we do a lot of original cataloging, and to do the cataloging bit was hard. And I think I had slides actually, Jess, if you want to, or if anybody want to do the slides.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to share your slides.
Oh, no, sorry. I thought that I had put them in the drive. Never mind.
Let me grab real quick.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I have some slides from SF MoMA. So anyways, I was stalking SF MoMA for a while, and I really wanted to do an internship. I ended up taking cataloging and classification. I also have been the library assistant in the Academy of Art for the past like 6+ months. And through all those experiences, got to the internship. I'm just waiting for the slides so I can show you guys what I've been working on.
Sorry, I'm getting it here.
That's okay. What sorts of things do I catalog? So this is what the slides are. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of that. It's a little treat because I can't show a lot of people the art because there is some intellectual property issues, but this is all educational. So I'm going to show some of it. We do original cataloging at SF MoMA. So the library archive internship, it is within the Northern California Gallery Files, which is a collection that's obviously Northern California specific. So like I would say Monterey Bay up towards Oregon. But predominantly it is Bay Area, and we are collecting gallery ephemera from 1960 forward. So a lot of stuff that's like counterculture-ish, which is an interesting time within Bay Area. There was a lot of movement to get beyond gallery settings, and a lot of movement to get beyond museums, and to really explore like exhibition spaces, and to think about art as something that's not, I guess, like within this European aesthetic, right? So you're looking, and in that way I say like European is like you go to a museum and you see things on walls, and it's, very studied and very classic. So it's looking at art, and performance also kind of gets lumped into that too, beyond those settings. And that's where galleries get really interesting, is like 1960-ish. There's also a lot of people who are not necessarily art professionals who are creating gallery spaces. There's a lot of, there's a huge queer movement. There's also a huge, there's me, thanks, Jess. There's a huge queer movement. There's a huge, it's very like female driven in that time as well. So we explore a lot of that time period, which is fun. But it's also frustrating, and that's where I say like the difficulty comes in, because it is original cataloging that we do, and it's a lot of research, to be very honest. So you really have to know your research skills and sort of like hone in on it. But it is a lot of like speaking RDA language. It's about speaking MARC language, and that was something that I went into the internship not necessarily comfortable with, just as comfortable as I am talking in front of people, obviously. So it was a challenge, because I knew it was going to be a stretch because I went out of my cataloging class feeling like I wasn't very proficient. I kind of knew like what looked wrong, and I knew that like I could kind of suss out what needed to be done, but I couldn't actually speak the language. What was it about SF MoMA that made you want to work there so specifically? It was, it's because it's such a huge institution within San Francisco, and I also really love, I just love their message because their current director, Neil, is he's very inspirational. He's kind of, he comes from an art history background, so he's not, he doesn't come from development. He doesn't come from, the business of being a museum. He is very much within art. And I really wanted to work with him, and I've had the good fortune of being able to meet him. And I think he draws like-minded people, and it's such an inclusive community, and that's what I really like about it. And I really just, I don't know, it's a fun place to work. And I will say the same thing about Academy of Art University. I got drawn there because I wanted to work with artists and I wanted to work with students. And I didn't know, when I was exploring art librarianship, if I wanted to be academically driven and if I wanted to give back to education or if I wanted to work in a museum. There's all my pictures. So it's one of those places too where I feel like it is very inclusive and people are very supportive of each other. We have so many people within that library that are San Jose graduates, and we really have a common thread of coming from this background with this education, but also being able to speak to an arts background and wanting to work with artists as well. So then what you guys are looking at right now is SF MoMA. So this is all my cataloging stuff. If you look at the top left-hand corner, that's sort of the beginning of the process. I get files. They may or may not have a lot of information. Mostly it's going to be ephemeral based. It's going to be a postcard, or it's going to be maybe like 2 or 3 postcards and maybe some press releases. And then if I'm lucky, you'll look at the next batch right over here with all the files. If I'm lucky, it's going to be a banker box, which is going to have a lot of information to it. So, you approach both of them very different ways. With the banker boxes kind of stuff, I would say it's probably a lot easier than the smaller files. And then, I do a lot of research, just trying to figure out where the connections are and who these galleries are. Because at the end of the day, what we do is we translate it from information into a corporate identity with RDA. And then from there, do original cataloging with Mark. So it is trying to figure out who they are. It's trying to figure out where they existed, when they existed, who existed with them. And every so often you get very cool stuff like this alligator right here. It's actually a sculptor, Richard Shaw, who he created his own marketing, and that's why I said before, like, this is intellectual property. So I'm not sure, beyond the educational setting, like, please don't redistribute this, but he did a lot of original marketing, and he's affiliated with this Key gallery that's underneath too. That is the gallery that you see next to it that has all those 12 files. It's really huge. And then, fun stuff like this little mouse in the corner. We only had like 1 or 2 postcards attached to this gallery. There's this fun like business card stuff that you find, the Last Whole Earth catalog. I included because at the end of the day, SF MoMA is an archive and we have really cool stuff. And I think that's, the other fun part is that I do get to do all this librarian stuff, but I also get to see really great art. And there's a lot of really great book art. There's really great periodical art. We feed into what gets produced within the galleries. And so it's interesting having conversations with a lot of people in that way as well. And I don't know, do you guys have any questions about that? I can just keep babbling along if you want, but if you're interested in internships specifically or not. did you do anything to prepare for the internship? I took classes. That was, I mean, like I said, I stalked the internship originally, and I really took classes that were geared towards that. So cataloging and classification, and I talked to people that had worked at SF MoMA, which also helped as well, and wanted to know, like, entry-wise, how do you get into this? How do you get into the museum? Like, what do you need to do? What are the qualifications that you need to have? So that helped, is just really networking and talking to people more than anything else. The slide that you guys are looking at now is actually me at the Getty Villa, which was going to be an intro to Linta, who's going to talk about the Getty, which is the other place that I'm stalking. Did you take most of your classes at San Jose State University? All of my library classes are at San Jose State University. All of my art classes are obviously outside of that. So I think, like, you know, with anything with art librarianship, you do have to have some sort of a, you do have to have a base knowledge. I'll answer that one next. I think, like, with any art librarianship, you do need to have, like, some sense of a base knowledge, but I don't think that, you know, with any sort of library career that you need to be an expert. I definitely don't know a lot of experts at Academy of Art University, for example. They're very much enthusiasts, I would say. SF MoMA is very different. They are super academic. Like, everybody has some sort of a master's degree. They have art history background. They have an artist background. So it is intimidating in that way. So I will say, like, if you do go into a librarian, like museum work, that you should be prepared for that, because I wasn't, and it was really astounding to meet people that were so well versed within that world. Could you explain more fully what stalking means within this context? I haunted their website. So I got, with any museum, you can sign up for email alerts. So I have them for SF MoMA, I have them for the Walker Art Museum in Minnesota, because that's where I'm from. And you can get push alerts for any job openings that occur, and they'll, same thing for internships. So you'll get the internship alerts, and and from there, I just, you know, I got those, but I also looked at job qualifications for what I wanted to do, which was working within the archive, and I figured out just the classes that I need to take, I guess. And then, who did you contact regarding the internship for more info? I contacted the library. So they are a public library. I talked to the head librarian specifically and asked more about what I needed to do to get the internship. And also from my archival class, I talked to my professor who had previous students who were in the internship, and asked, you know, what could you give me and what do I need to do to get this internship? Are there any other classes you would suggest for an archival type of position at a museum? I'm taking digital curation and preservation classes right now. I would say, if you are interested in museum studies, definitely do cataloging. I think that's something that most museums would like you to do if you are a librarian, beyond, like, collection assessment and all that kind of stuff. But I would think, going in the future, it's really going to be about digitization. It's going to be about creating digital practices that take the museum forward. I know right now at SF MoMA that they don't have a current policy in place. They don't have an active plan, but as more, as things become obsolete, especially like video, especially any sort of like analog data that is, like, I guess, like 1980s, 90s based, I would say people are really looking at digitization as a way of preservation, and how you approach that, I think, it's a thing that I think you should really be, like, future thinking about, would be my 2 cents. Linta? You're welcome.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Linda, and this is actually, I'm going into my 4th year of the program, and I've been working full-time throughout the program, so it's been a slow process for me. And I currently work as the Systems and Digital Initiatives Assistant at the Loyola Marymount University, which is a Jesuit university in Los Angeles. And prior to that, I was at the Getty Research Institute for about 4 years. And for those of you who don't know, the Getty Research Institute is part of the Getty Center, which is a large art organization in the West Coast. And in addition to the Research Institute, they also have a conservation institute, art museums, and also the Getty Foundation, which does grant-led programs or projects all across the world. And I actually got my start in the museum and library field through a Getty-funded undergraduate internship program. And my first Getty internship was at a small art museum at UCLA, and I helped build their online digital collections. And my second internship was as a special collections intern at the Getty Research Institute Library, where their primary collection focuses on art history and architecture, and they have a huge special collections and archive collection, and my job was to select rare books to be digitized. I had to physically assess the books and send them to scanners to be digitized. And at the end of my internship, I became an acquisitions assistant and at the GRI library, and I began wondering whether or not I should pursue a museum studies program or a library science program. And so I started doing informational interviews with both museum studies and library science degree students, and also talking with museum staff and institutional archivists at the library. And I decided to pursue a library science degree because of its transferability to both museums and libraries. And I decided to apply for the San Jose State program because of its digital services pathway and also the digital assets certification program. And there were also a lot of alumni of this SJSU program currently working at the Getty. So about 2 years into acquisitions, I had the opportunity to transfer into the digital services department at the Getty Research Institute. And my main job was to help with their mass digitization projects. And so what I was doing was taking the metadata and digital assets and putting them into their digital assets and digital preservation system. And it was a very cool job because I had the opportunity to work with so many different departments. And these were all people with their library science degree, or they had their PhD in art history. And so there were people from the special collections department, the archivists and catalogers, who were physically processing the collections and creating finding aids and creating the metadata. And there were curators who were actually making the decisions to acquire larger collections or even selecting materials for the larger digitization projects. There were also copyright specialists who are in charge of clearing copyright, and they also do risk evaluations if something is in copyright. They decide on the access restrictions and at what resolution we should upload something. There are the imaging technicians who actually digitize the material. And there was also the project managers who are involved in making sure that all of this process goes through smoothly. And then there was me, my little deposit team, who manages the ingest process, who uploads everything into the system. And while I was at the Getty, I also noticed that there was a shift towards the digital. There was a lot of talk about linked open data. There was a lot of interest in digitization, digital preservation, and digital asset management. And being in the program and also working an internship or a job gives you the unique opportunity to cater your courses towards the needs of your position. But I was also able to see the changing trends towards the digital initiatives in the field. And so I was able to focus more coursework towards that. And another thing I would say is that the last 2 years at the Getty were both grant funded limited term years, so I was annually renewed, and that's pretty common in the art field. You will see a lot of grant funded and limited term, about 6 months, anywhere between 6 months to 3 years is pretty common, and you may feel like it's more and more difficult to find a full-time long-term position, or you're competing with people with their MLIS degree or even PhDs, and it's hard to feel or it's easy to feel like it's hard to find a job in the field. And that's why I feel like the MLIS degree comes in handy, because I'm not just limited to the museum field or just the library field. It's very versatile, and as long as I do my research and you just look around and you don't limit yourself and you don't eliminate a position just because the title doesn't match what you were looking for, hope for the best. It'll be okay. So any questions?
I actually have a question, Linta. This is Karen Pfeffer. Do you feel like, because this is sort of something that I've been thinking about with SF MoMA, with the curatorial team at Getty, do you feel like that there's active dialogue between them and library services? Because that was something that I thought was really astounding going into SF MoMA, is that there wasn't. They're actually under 2 different umbrellas, which was not what I expected.
Yeah, so the art museum side of it is different from the research library side of it, but there is a curatorial department within the research institute. And like you said, unless they're working on something together, like an exhibition, chances are that there is not that much communication because they're working on 2 different things. Where do you want to be? I'm sorry?
Oh, I was going to say too that, just to put perspective on it, because this is again like a conversation I've been having with my supervisor at MoMA. She is a cataloger from MoMA proper in New York. Not that SF MoMA isn't proper, but the other MoMA. She had a very different experience where she worked actively with curatorial, so that they developed collections and exhibits based upon the research that was done at the archive, which I thought was really interesting. So just something else to think about. Different museums have different scopes and perspectives.
Yeah, definitely at the GRI there was a push to use the collections material for their own exhibitions and publications. And sometimes they are already thinking about it when they're acquiring a new collection. They think about the digitization projects, or even how they can put together an exhibition and even a research-funded project around it.
Yeah, my 2 supervisors have been working actively with Internet Archive, and they've been trying to figure out ways that researchers who are specifically interested in like galleries and being able to, from an art history perspective, research it in future. So they've been doing a lot of like web archiving in that way, which I think is an interesting dialogue as well.
Yeah.
Again, you guys, digitization, do it. Digital archives, curatorial.
Let's see. Where do I want to be after I have my master's? Well, I'm kind of at a loss because, I have experience working for an art organization, but I'm right now working at an academic library. So I have a lot more options, and you would think that would make things easy. But for me, I feel like I have a lot of options. So, which is great. I can look around, but definitely something that has to do with digital humanities, digital scholarship, information literacy, and digitization and digital preservation, whatever opportunity I get.
All right, do we have any more questions for Linta? Okay, sounds like, oh, one more. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Other than contacting librarians, how do you go about finding those jobs you just mentioned? So I usually I have an Excel spreadsheet with a lot of job websites, and I've actually categorized them by nonprofits, academic, art institutions, and just entertainment industry. I've assigned my own categories to it, and when I was job hunting, I would just go and look at them on a daily basis, sometime depending on how I was feeling that week. And but I also just want to mention that the Getty actually has a graduate internship program for recently graduate. I don't know if maybe you could also be enrolled in graduate school, but it's not just, they have one of the internships is a library science one, but they have other internship opportunities that you may be able to do depending on your interest. So you should check out that website. I don't know if the application has passed for the year. Yeah, Karen knows about it. But yeah, I say just any institution if you, like Karen mentioned, if you want to work for an institution, add it to your list and check out their website, because it may not be shared through a job board. And I also joined a few professional organizations like the special, like SLA, and they also send out a lot of job postings throughout the day on a daily basis. So that's another reason for joining a student chapter and getting involved in professional organizations.
All right, thank you so much to Karen, Linta. And just a reminder, we do have, we actually now have 2 Survey Monkeys in there. The one is actually a survey for about our program. The one's a little further up in the chat that Jessica Winham posted is about for your chance still to win the $25 gift card to Barnes & Noble. So make sure you click on that before the end of the program tonight. As I also put in the chat as well, remember that we also are live tweeting our event tonight thanks to Michio, our social media director. So check that out at #NightAtTheLibraryMuseum. And finally tonight, we have one more speaker with us tonight, Amanda Castro. She is the museum director at the Mathew Museum and was kind enough to join us via her phone because she was having internet issues. So thanks for hanging in there with us, and welcome, Amanda.
Hi, how's everyone doing today? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear you fine.
Oh, okay, can you see me too now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Well, as mentioned, my name is Amanda Castro. I'm the museum director here at Mathew Museum. On the right-hand side is a picture of our museum building, and on the left-hand side is a picture of our ethnobotany garden, as well as all of my contact information. Shameless plug to our museum website, and visit us during our business hours, Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Part of my job here, make sure everybody knows where we are, when we're open, information on visiting us as well, and how to stay in contact with us. So I have some talking points that I got from Casey earlier this week, and I thought I would go along with them because I'm not from a library science background. I come from MA in public history, and then essentially. And so I just want to make sure that I'm helping you guys with information that's useful for your degrees and for the classes that you're taking. I'm pretty excited to be here talking to you guys because it looks like out of the through two other speakers, I come from a different background, but also a different size institution that I'm working for and working with. So for example, the museum here is about 700 or 800 square feet. The library that we have here on site is about 400 square feet, and I'm currently the only employee of the museum. So that's a little bit different than some of the larger institutions that you guys were speaking of earlier. So the library environment that we have here, this museum and library, as well as our garden, and all the events that we do here at Malky are very community-based. So the museum itself is actually located on the Morongo Reservation. And so we're right in the middle of a community, and we're right in the middle of the community that we serve, which is amazing. I am myself not a tribal member. I got this position through my education, and what I kind of bring to the table here is museum, exhibit design background, also archiving background. And so being the museum director, I have to supervise all projects that happen here on the grounds. And I also, yes, it is amazing and it's great. And everybody here has been so welcoming and open to me, you know, being here and helping. So it's been a great opportunity for me. I've been here 2 years so far. And I hope to be here for a couple more years and get some of these big projects out of the way so that we can leave Malky in a good place. So yeah, so our library is very small. I have to supervise the students that are working in there. So the only way that we actually get a lot of the museum work and library work done here is through interns and volunteers. And so of those two, we have we had Andrea Geyer from Cal State San Bernardino. She came over here and she helped to organize, let's see, where did you gain experience with creating museum exhibits? I'll get to that right after this point. So with our library, we had an MA student come out, and she actually was able to catalog and organize all of our books. And so, you know, when we originally were looking into the library, there was a librarian that worked here for 8 years, and she had a very, very hard to figure out system, which I don't think should have been the issue, but that's what it was. She had about 5 numbers in her cataloging system. So 5 numbers per book, and it did not give us much information at all. So we pretty much scrapped that and started brand new. So right now we have about 700 books in our catalog, 700 books in our collection, and all of them are organized and look great. Yes, it was a very hard time, but luckily I was just supervising the project. We had a student that worked here for about 6 months doing all of the labor in order to get the library in the way that it is now, which is beautiful now. It actually has a little desk inside, a little reading area, and we're able to actually help researchers when they come in and not just open the door and say, have fun. If you need help, let us know, but not really have any clue as to where things are or how to help them, which is what Malky was doing previously to this, was just letting people kind of rummage around. And I know, as I said, I'm come from small museum background, so I know that's sometimes all you can do, and a lot of people are very thankful for even that opportunity to be able to look through some of this information, but at the same time, it's always nice to know what you have and what you're doing. So I got my museum experience. I just graduated with my master's in 2017. So like I said, this was the job that I got right after graduation. For my bachelor's, which was in 2014, I was working alongside Casey Lee here at Patton State Hospital. So in that project, it was actually, I guess you can say, part of my senior year project in my undergraduate in public history. We were at Patton State Hospital, and we helped to create the museum there on the grounds, and we did it from the ground up. So I don't know how much Casey has told you about that project, but it was pretty groundbreaking for mental health history itself and for the California State Department of Hospitals, because we were able to create a museum on the grounds from a cottage, literally from the ground up. So going through what an employee by the name of Anthony Ortega collected in terms of items, in terms of books and photos, and then curating exhibits for the space, and then having it open while we were still students, which was amazing. And then I was one of the only students out of the team of 5 of us that stayed on. I couldn't get enough of patents, so I had to stay. I stayed on during my master's program to help with archiving the collections at Patton State Hospital. So with, like I mentioned, the exhibit design experience and the archival design experience, I was able to land this position. And that's kind of one of the points that I want to get across to all the students that I'm talking to and talking with, and all the people that I'm kind of helping, you know, if you guys don't already have positions in libraries or museums, is that if you are interested in a certain topic or a certain museum specifically, always do what you can to show that organization that you're interested. So larger institutions, you know, get on their mail list and they tell you, you know, what you need to know in order to kind of jump into their projects and to help them. But it's a different, yeah, stock it. But are these generally paid internships? But the main thing that I would say with small museums is that you need to go to the museum that you're interested in and spend some time there. Volunteer your time, let them know that you're interested. And then also, especially if you have some degrees, you make sure you let them know, and eventually something might work out for you. So I would just say, make sure you put the time in to do what you need to do to let museums know that you're available and that you want to help them. So, you know, for example, Mathew Museum has a very small budget. We have about $90,000 that we have listed on our budget this year, and that's for everything that we want to do this whole year. No, these internships aren't usually paid, so like for ourselves, that's why I mentioned the budget, because there's not much wiggle room in that to pay these interns. But the main thing would be that if you can spend only a couple hours a week to spend that time there and get the education and get the experience that you need. For myself, I had to work 4 different jobs in my senior year, and then also, you know, make sure that I didn't get too much rest, but make sure my homework got done, you know. Exactly. So experience ended up working for me. So even though I had to work 4 different jobs, you know, and make it work, the experience of Patton and all the time that I spent there that I thought I was wasting my time was the only way that I landed this job, because it was between myself and a PhD candidate, you know, and I went out because of the experience I have in museums. So let's see, is there any other talking points that I would like to go over? Yeah, so my career pathway, I essentially just did a lot of small museum internships. I worked 1 internship at a larger institution, which would be NARA in Paris here in California. And I only organized and rehoused maybe 5 boxes of content and images for them, but having that name on my resume made a big difference. And then I also worked at had an internship at Edward Dean Museum and Garden, and so we had there, I did very minimal time, only about 3 months, but that also helped because that location, that museum is very local to Malky, and so they know that museum, and so having familiar museums in the area that you've worked with as well helps out. So to become part of the small museum community wherever you're at is very helpful, and that's pretty much all I did. So I jumped around from different small museums. I also helped with a Chinese American history kind of research project for the city, and we did a project for the city of Riverside. That was also another, you know, stepping stone to where I am now. And networking is a big deal. So like I said, knowing all of the people that are working in various communities in one space is really helpful. So here in Southern California, where I'm working now, this is more desert. And so it's kind of funny because a lot of the Inland Empire connections that I made and people that I know people from the desert. And so when we go to events and we're tabling together, we all know each other and we can say hi to each other. But now it's also a new community that I came into. And there are a lot of different tribes that I have had to, become acquainted with, a lot of people and families here on the reservation, that part of the Morongo community, that I have to know who they are and, a little bit about their own family histories. And so I would say networking is kind of starting all over again for me, which is really fun. But it actually is amazing because you get a lot of different perspectives about what the museum's here for, what the museum and the library does for the community. So it really helps. Another one. So I would say maybe some tips if you're interested in working in small museums is make sure that, let's see. That's a really good question. So someone with a family, one way you could take advantage of opportunities like small internships at museums is ask if you're able to bring your family to different events to help out. That is literally something that we here at Malky like to have and also allow. So we had an intern here who also worked with the collections, and she had 3 kids, and she said, I want to help at this event, but I have my baby, I can't really find a babysitter. And so we said, well, all of our events are family friendly, and that's the point, is to bring the community together, bring families together. So she brought her baby with her 4-month-old baby and her 2 daughters, and we had a great time. She helped as much as she could, but a lot of the time with small museums, I would say, is just to know that people want to help you makes you feel less alone and makes you feel like you can accomplish a lot more, because more hands on a project might seem like a bad thing, but as long as you have someone that is a good supervisor and a good designator of jobs during the day, you can get a lot done and you can feel good about, having people around. So, so my daily activities as a curator. So right now, Malky is in a little bit of a state of flux, I would say. So I've been here 2 years, and unfortunately, the previous director was only here 3 years. The previous director was here about 5 years. So there's a very short time period that directors are here, which means that a lot of the bigger projects don't get done in time. And that's unfortunate, because you can say, I want to revamp the library, catalog everything, have a new system and make it work for the people that really want to, come and do research. But if someone's here for 2 years, and as most of you know, cataloging and organizing does take time. I would say the reason for short-term directors is the museum's very small, and so everyone has used this museum position as a stepping stone into other positions at larger institutions. So essentially, you come here, you get the title of director, you do your job for a couple years, and then you go on to, larger museums, or you go on to teach with your experience. I'm hoping not to be one of those people, because there is not, I wouldn't say potential here at Malky, but I would say that here at Malky, there's a lot of work to be done, all in the name of bettering the Morongo reservation, bettering the communities, and even the, other tribal entities in the area. So Malky is known for having information. We have over 50 titles that have to do with Native American history, culture, art, children's stories, all of those good things. And so, we are a large name, but a small museum. And so here, we really, on a daily basis, what I do is I either A, am managing interns, or B, trying to find more interns to do work, and just I kind of lay out the framework of what needs to be done, and then it's accepted, edited, denied by our executive board, which there are 8 people that are on our executive board that we work with on a monthly basis and a daily basis. So I come in and bring my expertise of archiving or exhibit design, and I make a plan, and then we have to figure out, well, if it's going to take 80 man hours to do, then how many interns do we need? Or usually we don't have a long list of people that are trying to volunteer for us because of where we're located. We're out in the desert. But we do try to say, well, since it's only going to be myself and one other intern, it's going to take about 6 months. So I'm kind of, I would say, like the project manager side of things. And then in terms of, curating, I'm also right now trying to update all the exhibits in the museum. And so the main thing is to get with the board members who have been here, some of them since the 1970s, a lot more years than myself, and say, what are we really trying to do with the museum? What are we trying to say? What type of messages? And then also what type of audience? So although we are a community-based museum and most of the people that do visit us are tribal members and their families, we also do have a lot of people come right off the 10 freeway, which is a major highway here in Southern California. And, we really have a lot of people that come onto the reservation and don't even know where they are, the history of Morongo itself, the history of Malky. So we're trying to figure all of those messages out and then turn to our other interns that are working on organizing our different collections, from library books to images to documents to artifacts, and mesh those two together. So how can we get this message across, and especially in our square footage? So like I mentioned, the museum itself is only about 600 or 700 square feet. It's not very big at all, so limited space. That's pretty much what I do. And then I also put out flyers every day. So I know I'm kind of running out of time here, but I would say, for example, does our museum have a board? Yes, our museum has a board. There are 8 executive board members. And then we also have an editorial board because we have Malky Bellina Press, where we publish books. So I'm technically the museum director as well as the Malky Bellina Press director as well. So I do everything that has to do with the books too. So I put out flyers. For example, we had a family come in that wanted to drop off different regalia from Plains Indian tribe, which, Morongo and Malky is not anywhere near that area. But they were already promised by my coworker or one of the volunteers here that we would take on the collection as well as put it on display, which is not great. So I kind of had to work on my feet and figure out what was I going to do and say, which we ended up taking on the collection. And now we're kind of having to deal with the repercussions of that because, as most of you know, in your learning and your education, that mission statements of institutions and visions of institutions sometimes don't go hand in hand with the reality of day-to-day work. So that was a hard lesson to learn. Let's see, what skills do you look for in interns? Honestly, the location, so where the intern lives in comparison to the museum, because as I said, we are pretty far from larger towns. And so we want to make sure that whoever is going to come and intern here has the time and is able to come and intern with us. And then also, I personally look for an intern that maybe doesn't have the specific experience in the project that they want to come on for, but that they've at least taken 1 or 2 classes in the realm of what they need to know to get the job done. So for example, we have a student that is going to start interning next week, and she's in her undergraduate program, her 3rd year, and she has her degree. She would like to be an anthropologist, but has a minor in business. And so to me, that was like, you know, amazing, because I'm like, that is what we need. We need somebody that has a head for business, because even though we are a museum and you think it's all about education and in terms of, you know, knowing a lot about the history of the place, we also need to know that we can get help with other things on the business side, because even though we are a museum, we are also a business. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, so I look for people that have taken at least 1 or 2 classes that has something to do with what they want to do. And I also like when people come to intern that have a clear view of what this internship is going to do for them. So if somebody says, you know, I want experience in the library, that's amazing, because as the only employee, it's much harder to sit with somebody and try to pull out of their brain their goals for an internship. And those are kind of the harder projects to get done, because if I end up kind of coaxing them into wanting to say work in the archive when not everybody likes the archive, unless you're Casey Lee or some other interns I worked with in the past, you know, unless you like that type of work, if I set them there and they have to do it, it might not get done as well. It might not get done as fast. So I really like when people know what they want from the internship, because Malky gets work done, usually for free, but then also Malky is helping that intern or that student get the experience that they want on their resume, because let's be realistic, most internships are taken for resume builders and also education they get. Yeah, so I didn't do the website. So we have a website, malkymuseum.org, but I didn't design it. That was designed the year before I got to the museum. And then anything virtual that can be done for the museum. At this point, that's a good question. I'm pretty sure if I have a day or two to think on that, I can figure something out. So I know on the slide that is put up there, my email is there. So anyone that's interested in seeing what we can do, that would be one way to contact me, or also the museum phone number there, 951-849-7289. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there is. I'm like 100% sure that there is something that can be done virtually for the museum, especially in terms of like education. So we have a lot of different groups that we work with, and so for someone to help kind of build something on the education side, that could be useful, or even maybe cataloging, or what is the word I'm looking for? When you look at an item and you get the metadata from an item to enter into the catalog. I don't know. Good question. Yeah. I think that's it for me. I was told like 20-25 minutes. I think I went over a little bit, but yeah, does anyone have any other questions for me or anything they want to know? And then if Casey, if you can go to the next slide, anyone that's in California, in Southern California, we have our upcoming agave harvest and roast that I wanted to mention during the event or during this talk. So it's a really fun family event. So yeah, that's it for me.
All right, thank you so much, Amanda. And I think I was trying to follow along. I'm pretty sure we got all the questions that were in there. Did anybody have any additional questions they wanted to ask? Okay, it does not look like it. So before we get going tonight, I just wanted to quickly, 2 things before we go, actually more than that, 3 things probably. Jen, if you could put into the chat the survey, the link to the survey for tonight, right there it is. Yes, just for your feedback for tonight. This is not for the contest, this is just your feedback for tonight. But speaking of the contest, Jessica's gonna hop on here and let you know who the winner is tonight.
Hi. Okay. So congratulations to Cynthia Cortez. I hope I'm saying your name right. You were tonight's winner of a $25 Barnes & Noble gift card.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Congratulations. Thanks for doing our survey. And I'm going to post that here. And then also there's some information that Francis left about our website, our Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, so that we want you guys to keep in touch, and that we have 2 more gift cards. So keep an eye out for when we have our next events, and you can score again, hopefully, and also get some really good information.